If there's one thing we've learned about business and life, it's that people are the X factor. They constantly surprise us, both in amazing ways and not so much. We're Ben and Syya, and welcome to the Gnaw This Business Bytes podcast. This show is all about real life things we all deal with every day, how they relate to business, and how to make some sense out of our daily chaos. Welcome to the show. And welcome back to another episode of Gnaw This Business Bytes. I'm Ben, and this is Syya. And this week, we want to talk about the psychology of deadlines. You know what? Everybody reach back, maybe not that far, maybe a long way back, to high school, university, and those papers that didn't get started, never till like 8 hours before those things were due. And it's amazing at times how brilliant some of those things were, or at least the professors thought it was brilliant. I've read some of those papers 10 years back and I went, did I write that? Did I understand that? Okay, well, we'll just go with that. It's amazing what pressure does to focus us. Some people crack, some people shine. And you need to desperately know yourself to sit there and say, okay, how do you run your life? I'm one of these people that lived my life on a schedule. I know what needs to be done. It is never, ever done at the last moment. It is usually done a day or two early. You know, it gives me time to edit it. It gives me time to reflect on it. It gives me time to change it and be able to put the best product forward for me. That's how I work. I know what the date is, but I put that date 2 days earlier. And that way it enables me to have that extra time to go back and look at it just to be on the safe side. Some people live their lives up to the 11th hour. And I'm not saying who, I'm not saying why, but there are people in my life that live their life at the 11th hour. And, nothing's a priority until it becomes a priority. And you know what? That's a different way of looking at things. I can't do it. It drives me absolutely insane. But then again, I'm one of these people that if I'm not 15 minutes early for something, I'm late. So let's gnaw on this, Syya. Let's chew on this one and see, how do we come up with the realization of the psychology of deadlines and why different people look at deadlines completely differently.
So this is why you and I are friends. And I think
Yes.
this is the first time in a long time where I think you and I are not thinking alike, right? Like I am I try really hard to plan. Trust me, I try so hard to plan. I try, everyone, say it with me. Try so hard to plan, and yet something slips by. I edit, right? I create content all day long. There is a process to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like always almost in tears. I don't cry, so I'll say it's the equivalent of me crying, but I was almost like frustrated tears. I'm like kind of yelling at my boyfriend, and I'm like, why the heck? How the heck? I just wasted an hour because I missed step 4. Like, and I have to start over, or me retroactively because I skipped 4, like it's causing me pain because I skipped it. It's almost like scrap it and start over again type of thing. And of course, my boyfriend's very similar to you, Mr. Logic, Mr. Write It All Out, Mr. Why don't you build a checklist? Well, the problem is, people, I look at that checklist and have you ever heard of the term like mind blindness? You
Mm-hmm.
look at it enough and you literally miss a step because you literally don't see it because you look at that all the time. Like on my desktop, I have a thing that says daily checklist, and it's just my clients. It doesn't have any action
Sure.
items.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, you have people paying you. Do you remember this name? Oh yeah, you haven't touched it in a while. You might want to touch it today, kind of vibe, right?
Right.
Uh, yes. If I don't put deadlines on for things for me, I try to do 2 weeks in advance of stuff. So that helps me with my brain realize if I screw up for an entire week, I'm not behind. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know you make fun of me. Like today, for example, like you called me and you're like, "Hey, we're doing this, right?" And I'm like, who are you?" "Oh, today?" Like, and then you, being the helpful person that you are, mister, see, I set alarms all the time. I set a lot of alarms. Sir, I become ear numb to alarms. I used to do that too. And again, and then I was like not snore queen. What's that called?
Yeah.
Snooze queen,
Ignore. I just call it ignore queen.
ignore queen, and it becomes too much. And that's when, again, what works for you may not work for others. I think deadlines,
Absolutely.
but it doesn't matter what kind of brain you are. To know that there is a deadline is to know everyone's marching on the same drum too. So you
Yes.
can't give a personality like me get it done whenever you want to get it done. It'll never get done.
Right.
And people like you are the kind that's like, what is my function? Cannot function. What is my so I because you know why? So I can prioritize better
Exactly.
what I need to do. So yeah, I'm
Exactly.
catching what you're pitching. I'm catching.
I mean, I love our Saturday and Sunday, loving text that I send you. It says, "See ya, this is your loving Sunday morning wake up call."
Reminder.
This is your reminder. Oh yeah, we got to get the done. We got to get the pre-information out for this week's show.
You know what?
But
Back off, peoples, all of you. You're
but you know
mean.
what? But it works for us. I get my weekly snicker, and you get the we got to get this done, and it works for both of us, so that's okay. Because
Yeah,
the problem is
sure.
I can't do my part until you've done your part. So
I know. Knowing that I'm your weakest link, I think it's hilarious. Like I'm your down the what's that called the factories. Like
yeah,
you're just standing there playing tiddlywinks until you're like my stuff is done. I think conveyor belt.
yeah,
You're just
I'm down the conveyor belt waiting for my piece to show up. Exactly.
oh my
But
gosh,
we
that's so
all
funny.
we all have our idiosyncrasies.
Mm,
God knows I have enough of them. God knows enough. And for me, you know, I just don't ever want to have anybody waiting on the conveyor belt for me. Like
fine, whatever, dude.
it's just no. That's just me. That's my
Yeah.
idiosyncrasy. That's my anal retentiveness. We have a shirt that says I don't have OCD. I have CDO because the letters are arranged in perfect order.
Yeah.
So it's I understand I have OCD when it comes to certain things. There's certain things that it needs to be right. It needs to be done, on time. It needs to be done early. And this is okay because that's how I function. But for me to sit there and put my demands and my schedule and how I do business and how I deal with deadlines on everybody else is unrealistic. My attitude is this needs to happen by Tuesday at 3 o'clock because Tuesday at 5 o'clock I'm presenting it, and I need 2 hours to be able to put this thing together before the meeting.
Mm.
I prefer it the night before, but I need to have it. You know, it
That's
needs to
you.
be
That's you
perfect.
being really kind, by the way.
It
Two
needs to
hours
be
before.
perfect. Yeah, it needs to be perfect. It needs the 2 hours before, so I have time, and I will have booked those 2 hours before the meeting to reread the note. I'll be rereading the notes anyway and doing all that kind of stuff. But where I go crazy is when somebody promises me something and then they let me down.
Yeah.
They don't fulfill their part of the bargain.
Right.
They don't fulfill, and unfortunately, you know, with vendors, and I've tell vendors this one and done. I say you either lie to me or you let down my clients, and it doesn't matter if it's my internal client or my external client. You're done. We're done. I will go find somebody else who can. And this is the conversation that I have with vendors. With internal clients, it's a different conversation. But with vendors, if there's going to be a problem, I need to know early and often what the problem is, what you're doing about it, what the resolution is, and how we're going to position this to the customer. And if you can be open and honest and let me know that a week ahead of time, this has been, we can't get the raw materials for this. Our vendors out of stock. We can't. We've checked three other sources. We can't do that. Okay, now I can go back to the client and say, look, we've run into a sourcing issue where we can use this product instead of this product. We can get that product. Will that work for you? Here's what the ramifications are. This is what, it's either going to cost a little bit more money, or it's not as good quality, or this is where the problem is, and give them a couple so the customer can make a decision. But if you leave it to the last minute and says, oh well, I couldn't get the raw material, so I didn't go bother, you're done. You're absolutely, in my life, in my world, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. You remind me of another conversation previous, I think, where we're talking about like, setting the boundaries of in communication, right?
Right.
And having the ability to do that. Um, it's funny with deadlines, especially if you're talking with whoever, either a client, internal or external client. I'd mentioned at the very end how, how is it that we're still friends and what was it about a communication? You just mentioned deadline, and I remember there was one project that kind person gave us their deadline, which is fine because that's our deadline, not
Yeah.
my deadline, right? But that punk knew darned well, because I told him in advance, like, hey, there is some delays, but you need to get the order in so I can put you in priority and whatnot, right? And he
Hmm.
told me, well, I have a deadline, I need deliverable by X this date.
Yeah.
Well, he did his part. He got the PO in, which is great. Come to find out, he had heard that there was going to be a shortage of certain components and whatnot. And smart on him, kept pushing, say the drop dead date. I have to have
Right.
delivered by this
Yeah.
date. That thing sat there for 2 months
Hmm.
because he wanted to guarantee himself that he had it. So yes, I agree with deadline, but at some time point too, it's like, come
Oh
on,
yeah.
guy.
I mean, yeah. I
But
mean,
it's
we've
okay,
all fudged deadlines for, told people that we said we need to have it Tuesday when we really need to have it Friday.
right? No,
But my
and
attitude is that, you know what, I'd rather do that than have you deliver it on Friday afternoon when I'm trying to get into a FedEx package by 8 o'clock, by 5 o'clock.
and heaven knows that happens. Yeah. No, 100, 100. But it is funny though how deadlines is that term is so arbitrary, really. It depends on it can be for real. And there are some people who
Yes.
really cut it close, right? And
Oh,
then there are
absolutely.
others that are like and is that not such a you and me? Like I'm the kind that's like, just get it to me right before, dude. If we got it, we got it. You're like, so for peace of mind for everyone, we're going to have it a week prior to. We have the opportunity to asset tag everything in advance and like, yeah, I get it. I catch what you're
Yeah.
pitching. It is
I mean,
cracking me up though. Like it's an arbitrary concept, but it's also sometimes not for you to control. If you're in a service side of the things, it's sometimes it's nothing that you can control unless it's something you can control, right? So.
yeah. I mean, I've also had customers that say this, I need it by a certain date. And I said, okay, this is going, yes, and. I says, yeah, we can do it by that
Mm.
date, but we're going to have to airship it. We're
And
going to
are
have
you
to
willing?
we're
Yeah.
going to have to airship 10,000 pieces from China to the East Coast on an overnight in order to make to make that deadline. Are you willing to do that? He says, well, tell you what, how many days is it going to take? Well, it's going to be about 24 days on water and then rail across the country. He says, all right, well, why don't you get us 2,000 for that date and have the rest of it put on the water as soon as you can? When all of a sudden they realize that it's going to be an extra $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how priorities change. It's amazing,
Exactly.
amazing. All of a sudden people go, that's going to cost an extra $60,000. Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need all of it in New York City on the same day. We need 2,000 or we need 1,000 of these things, to be able to, present to customers or for a splash opening or for a limited release or whatever. But if the rest of the stuff gets there in 30 days later, we're okay with that. It's amazing how priorities shift and change, and how the psychology behind it shifts and changes when all of a sudden you let people know it's going to be another 60, 80, $100,000, to be able to meet their deadline.
That's hilarious. Because now you're putting money where their mouth is. If it was a serious
Exactly.
deadline, oh, they would pay it. If it was that important, they would pay it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've told you this story about when I worked at Kinkos before. Is we had a client that needed to have something. They had people heading on a plane on Sunday night for an 8 o'clock Monday morning meeting, and they needed 250 copies of this 250 or 300 page color brochure or catalog, printed, collated, bound, tabs, everything for them to pick up so they could go right to the airport.
Hmm.
We closed down 2 or 3 stores to make this thing happen. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. So printing full color was extremely slow at the time. The rip,
Yes.
just didn't have the rip technology, and then putting it all together. So therefore, yeah, we had to close down 3 stores, and they said we don't care what it costs because it's a $500 million. It's a $500 million proposal. If we don't have this information in our hands, we're out on a $500 million.
Crazy.
We just don't even get a sniff at it. So yeah, we worked our humps 24 hours a day for 3 days running to get this thing out the door, and we got it through. And all I got when they signed the visa was thank you very much. We really appreciate it. There
At
was
least
no pushback on price whatsoever.
perfect. Yeah, it matters. Yeah, no, I know we can keep talking about this, but I do think deadlines, again, I'm going to argue they are arbitrary. It can be for whatever need, arbitrary in the context of when they really, really want it, they will pay for it and it will get done. I think, so many great memories of deadlines. I mean, we live by deadlines every
We
day.
do.
Some find it anxiety inducing. Others, like me, I kind of get I'm not gonna lie, I get a bit of a rush, a high. Partially because I didn't plan it. I'm like, oh crap, right? But yeah, no, it really, again, it goes back to a conversation I think we had way back when, or we haven't had it, which I would love, is really personality types. Really,
Absolutely.
some can excel in other areas. And maybe when you're leveling out your team or you're working with your team to know this particular section of the group performs well under stress. And this one does not, and just like know how to work accordingly with them. And as a manager or leader, to know that whatever deadline you set, just know one portion of the group might need more nudging than others. That's all. That's all I'm gonna
So
say to that.
speaking of deadlines, we've reached ours. So let's land this plane. I'm Ben,
I see ya.
and we'll see you soon.
Hey, hey, hey. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not on This Business Bites. If you liked what you heard, we most humbly ask that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to communicate more effectively within your organization, contact Ben at yourbrandmarketing.com or me at brilliantbeammedia.com. We can help you build your community, brand awareness, and personality through digital content and podcasting. We cannot wait to hear from you. So see you next week for another episode of Not on This Business Bites.